One of the creepiest things from 1997's I Know What You Did Last Summer was the killer's slow but determined walk. I mean, it was undaunted and unstoppable, much like Michael Myers. Now, for reasons unknown, that movie has become a series on Amazon, and I got to check out the first 4 episodes early. Should you be binging I Know What You Did Last Summer? In a town full of secrets, a group of teenagers is stalked by a mysterious killer a year after a fatal accident on their graduation night. So in the late 90s, we got a resurgence of horror movies, most likely thanks to the popularity and sensibility of Scream. So then we got this new batch of slashers. And one of the better ones was I Know What You Did Last Summer. We even had the teen staple of actors with Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze Jr., and Ryan Phillippe. And you can tell those first 3 really could be serial killers because they each have 3 names listed, just like most serial killers listed in the news. For 2021, Amazon has revived the story and pushed it into a modern age where cell phones, GPS, texts, and mobile videos are commonplace. So on their grad night, a handful of friends are driving when they strike a person, killing them. Then, just like in the movie, terrible decisions are made which then only compound future problems. Fast forward 1 year and the terror begins as those involved are now tormented due to their involvement in the accident. So this is filled with teen angst and portions are overly dramatic. I like the cast that they've chosen for the most part, even though I do wish bad things to happen on a lot of them. Now that shows just how effective though that they are at crafting personas that are sometimes endearing and other times completely off-putting. Now the way the story is put together, there are quite a few flashbacks. They're just interwoven through the episodes. And there were more than a couple of times that I was playing catch up with the scene because it was hard to decipher which portion of an event I was watching. Now something that I liked in this series so far has to do with one of the main characters. And there's a family aspect that really throws in a complication to the plot. Now I know I'm being vague, but I just don't want to give away anything. Each of the first 4 episodes is between 45 and 50 minutes, so they are really drawing out the mystery that was resolved, in that 100-minute movie that it's based on. What's created by doing this is a lot of drama between one of the main characters, Lennon, and her dad, but also we get some repetition throughout the sequences. Flashbacks routinely cover the same information, just maybe from a slightly different angle or perspective. Now, I don't think that all of that repetitiveness is needed though, because once we've seen the events play out, small nuances here and there aren't really revealing anything of substance. Occasionally there might be some additional drama that's introduced, and I guess it's made to maybe create suspicion or doubt, but what doubt may be instilled, it's fairly flimsy. After the first 4 episodes, I do have to say that I'm intrigued to find out who is behind what's going on. Now, the show has done enough to conceal the perpetrator. At least I hope it has. Now, there is a very obvious suspect, and I'm really hoping that it's not that blatant. And there have been a couple of suspects that I've had in mind, but I've been wrong. So I do appreciate that the show is still able to keep me guessing. As much as I'm engrossed now in the mystery, I think the show treats the audience like we're idiots in the first episode, and then really throughout the show. I mean, there is a reveal in the first episode, which I think is pretty obvious, but still, for confirmation, the show unveils some facts that will be pertinent moving forward. But then, after showing us a sequence of events for the reveal, it shows them to us again. I mean, it's insulting. My wife and I actually thought the second episode had started and they were showing a recap of the first episode. No, the show was just like, hey, we don't think you're smart enough to have gotten this the first time, so here you go again. In the same episode. That just not only left a bad taste in my mouth, but it made me really question whether I was going to continue with the show. We don't need explanations repeated several times within the same episode. Now, the editing of the show is a bit choppy, bouncing us around the story sometimes. What's funny is that for a series that I've already invested almost 4 hours in, the storytelling feels very rushed, like they're skipping over character development to focus more on angst and drama that ensues. That's fine to include those things, but build out more of our characters as well. I mean, at the end of the day, they're all pretty much strangers to me. And almost all of them are on our list of suspects already, so give us more content surrounding them that can really help to build that suspicion and maybe even cause some good misdirection. Otherwise, the pace actually drags because so little happens compared to the time invested. This being a horror series, there is a decent amount of gore and even some violence. I think more often than not, we get to see the aftermath of the violence, even though there are some very brutal sequences with some spectacular kills. And while this is mostly targeted at the young adult audience, it's not geared towards the early teens or younger. I mean, in addition to the brutal violence, there's a fair amount of sex and drugs that are prominently displayed. I'm not sure that either of them really progress the story forward, even though there are some relationship aspects that do help to further the plot and the mystery. So the first 4 episodes are releasing all at once on Amazon Prime, within the next 4 coming one per week after that. And overall, while I'm now intrigued by the mystery of who the killer is, the show feels more dragged out than necessary, but it still lacks in character development. The angst and drama are compelling to a point, but they don't often progress the narrative in a meaningful way. Now, violence and gore are done well, crafting a slasher that is fun when the chase is on, but the way the series simplifies each plot point and over-explains doesn't give the audience any reason to try and think for ourselves. Now, I'll most likely continue on with the last 4 episodes as they release, but it's more because I'd like a resolution than any care or concern I have for the characters. There's a lot of sex, nudity, profanity, and violence. I give the first 4 episodes of I Know What You Did Last Summer 2.5 out of 5 couches. Are there any good slasher movies or shows you've seen recently? I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.